If you've been anywhere on the internet in the past week or so, you will recognize that this is Live 11. This is the new version of Ableton Live, which is coming very soon and which hundreds of experts have done tutorial videos on to show the new features. So the new features can be easily found here in this list of what's new in Live 11. And all these devices, fantastic devices and functionality, which you can learn more about by watching so many YouTube videos. So what I wanted to do today a little differently was to share some of my workflow experiences using Live 11 in producing music. And I'm using beta B18 today. And I believe that the beta is also available to the public if you want to try. As with all betas, you know that you take a slight risk because you're still in the testing phase. This is not the final, but it's a great way to get a look at these functions and to see whether they're useful for you. And spoiler alert, I found them pretty useful for me. I'm going to be talking about the various ways in which I've been using Live 11's functions for my music production and also getting it ready for live performance. And in between, feel free to jump in the chat and ask me questions, or unmute yourself and ask me a question. Go ahead. I like to keep it interactive, so please feel free. The first thing I want to show is a pretty simple piece of lo-fi. And I used a stock set of chord progressions. And this I got from a sample pack. And I loaded up one of the new look devices. This is actually electric. Electric is the electric piano module, a device. But you'll see that the interface has changed. So I'm able to actually adjust the different settings, and I can adjust the settings based on the actual physical look of the thing. I used to have to imagine what all the different settings were, but now I can actually see which part of the piano action it would come from. So as I tap this, you can see which part lights up. Much more intuitive. You'll also notice that there's a new button here above the macros. And to show you the power of this, I'm going to click on this snapshot camera action. First, I'm going to save what I see here. This creates a variation, meaning that it's a snapshot of the macro settings that I have now, what you hear. Then I can randomize. Sound has changed very slightly. Now it's become more fragile. I think I'll have a new version. So I click New, this variation 2. I'll rename it Fragile. The first one, I'll rename it as Normal. Let's try it again. This is brighter. I'm going to save another snapshot. Okay. Let's try another snapshot. Not that different. This is more gritty. So I'm going to make another variation, another snapshot. And now I can switch between. I've got different variations on the same instrument, which I can just switch back and forth using the snapshot function. I also decided that I want to do some, add some space to the sound because it's a bit dry. So I've added in the new hybrid reverb. This is just a preset. It's given a shimmer and it's a more intimate space. I like it because it's not overpowering. It can be overpowering if I want to, because I can easily choose something which is a chamber in a large room. That's the wonder of having convolution reverb together with algorithmic reverb's option. So it's a very nice reverb sound. So that's the chord progression I have. Of course, you always need a drum loop. This is the drum loop. I put in a reverb on it. And you see the reverbs are actually very clearly marked out what they are used for. This one is made for drums. I've got another new device here at the side, which is the Spectral Resonator. And this, I've got a special purpose for it. Now, if I just switch on the Spectral Resonator, you can hear it beginning to resonate. So that's interesting, but it's not musical enough for what I want. Why don't I take this MIDI clip and I copy it into a new track? And what I'll do is I'll take away all these extra notes and instead I'll stretch out everything because I want to fill up the space. Select all, quantize settings. Okay, so I've got full chords. I'm not playing any instrument. You see, track 4 is no instrument playing. But when I go back to track 3, I can now choose, using the sidechain, I can choose MIDI from track 4. And now the MIDI from track 4 will play the resonance. So I actually have MIDI playing the resonance from the drums because of the Spectral Resonator. I need to add in another layer, which should be my bass. So for my bass, I'm simply going to take the same MIDI clip, paste it here. Then I'll remove the top notes.
So Ben, once you've gone through that, is it possible to go through, like with the variation stuff, how can you access that if you want to use it for different sections of your recording?
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. So I've now taken away the top notes and I've put in the instrument called electric bass. Electric bass is actually a collision instrument, and collision is a physical modeling instrument. And here again, electric bass sounds, the default sounds like this. Let's solo it. I can let's bring it down and an octave or two to get that bass sound. So a lot more intuitive to move the little ball around than to try and change settings. Because I can move it around X and Y at the same time. It's a new twist on the old device, thanks to the new interface. The next layer I want to put is the new device, not an old device with a new skin, but a new device. And for this, I want to add in the MPE monomorph, which you will find is very interesting. It actually has, whoops, this is beta, so always be careful when you click something. This is Wavetable, and Wavetable has MPE capability. MPE, MIDI Polyphonic Expression, allows me to draw in new expression into the individual notes that I'm writing. But first we need to write the notes. So let's write the notes. Insert the empty MIDI clip, and I set my to 8s. Let's see. I need to write something in C# minor, and C# minor is not what you would call a fun scale to work in, right? It's not exactly easy to use. So instead, why don't I let the software do it for me? I click on scale here in my clip. I choose C#, and I'll choose a minor pentatonic, which is even easier. I've got even less notes to worry about. And straight away, it's marked out for me where the scale notes should be. I want to go one step further. I click on scale, and now only the scale notes show. So whatever I click here, it will be right. It will be correct. There used to be some really complicated workarounds we used to have to do this, but now it's there. By clicking on scale twice, basically, I now have everything in key. So I will make it faster by duplicating and then using invert. I can invert, I can reverse, invert again, invert, invert, reverse, creating something which is going to be in scale. For better or worse, it's in scale. it's kind of plain. Why don't I let the velocity be more varied? Should I draw in the velocity, or should I just click on the velocity, and click randomize? So now I've got different velocities. Okay. But if I keep on just playing this whole sequence of notes, it's going to drive me crazy, right? Because there's non-stop notes. So I don't want all the notes to play all the time. So instead, why don't I go to probability, and I can also bring it down. So every note only has, say, about 60% probability of playing. What does that sound like? In fact, for the second half, why don't I even randomize the probability? Oh, that range is a bit too big, right? So I'm going to reduce the range, try and make it a bit more likely to happen. Okay. I actually realized that this is an MPE instrument. So there is the ability to go into the notes, and by clicking on this tab here, I can now do things like change the aftertouch pressure on an individual note. So for example, in this note, I've now got pressure. I can increase the pressure on this particular note. Maybe every time an E appears, I shall increase the pressure on every E. I have no idea what this is going to sound like. But that's, to me, perhaps the most interesting part of this. Every time I see an E, I'm making it increase the pressure to simulate as if I was playing it, pressing it harder. So you can hear that every time it hits an E, that note has a different sound because the aftertouch pressure is making it flare up in some way. That's MPE. And if you have an MPE controller, like a Rolly C-board, you can actually play that live. And the last thing I want to put in is one of the new packs that comes with Live 11, which is the voice pack. It's right here, the voice box pack. And there are some pretty interesting instruments here. So I've got an instrument here called the voice. If I play it on the keyboard, so I thought, okay, I could play something on this, but oh, it's in C sharp minor. Again, not one of my favorite keys to play in, but the voice box pack also comes with MIDI devices. It comes with MIDI devices like this, the scale and key arpeggios and harmonies. So it can actually create things for me. So it actually, as I play individual notes, it actually creates phrases for me. If you can spotlight the camera that's on my keyboard, you can actually see that I'm only pressing one note, which is a C sharp, just again and again and again. So that's a quick zoom through some of the functions that I use to create more chill out music. In the next section, I'll talk about what I've been doing to make some more upbeat music